Good evening, and welcome to the special edition of Generation Gap. My name is Lauren Brown, and this is part 2 in our 3-part series about race. Tonight, we look to interview a highly respected member of Dr. Driscoll's administration about cultural diversity and inclusion on campus. We're joined by Dr. Pablo Mendoza, who is the Assistant to the President for Social Equity. Thank you for being here, Dr. Mendoza.
Thank you for inviting me, and just call me Pablo.
Okay. So what does it mean to be the Assistant to the President for Social Equity, and what does that title entail?
On most campuses, it's known as the Chief Diversity Officer. And the whole idea of my hire by Dr. Driscoll was to try to set an environment on this campus where diversity and inclusion is increasingly appreciated along racial, ethnic, religious, gender, and LGBT lines. And the job entails doing campus climate research, working with different departments around campus to do diversity action plans or develop curriculum around diversity, and then working with our partners in student affairs to make sure that the lived experience of students is welcoming and is not full of stress where they have to worry about discrimination in any way.
Okay, so what was your first reaction when you got the news of the offensive photo referring to students as monkeys?
My first reaction was, this is really sad and it's very, very unfortunate. And considering where we are right now in the Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement, it's really unconscionable that a student here would feel the need to make something so derogatory so public.
So when it came to the students' responses of this, were you surprised?
I was not surprised at all.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't either, actually. Do you think this was an isolated event, or does it speak to a larger problem that we have here at IUP?
Okay, let me put it contextually.
Okay.
College-age context. This is not isolated. We're seeing it happen throughout the whole United States, not just at IUP. And that speaks to the fact that we have not done decent diversity education in kindergarten through 12th grade. And many individuals may feel empowered to make those statements. So I do not know if it's highly representative of the majority population here at IUP, but it does indicate that someone may not have listened to any of the very little diversity education they may have received prior to coming here.
Now, at the time of the incident regarding the offensive photo, a number of schools across the country were facing their own racial dilemmas. One in particular was the University of Missouri. The incident led to the president of the university stepping down. Considering that you were previously worked there, how do you believe the situation would have been handled differently if it had been here?
Well, the big factor that made the University of Missouri situation different from pretty much every other campus in the United States was, number one, there was a student, Jonathan Butler, who was an undergrad when I worked at University of Missouri, and I worked with him when he was part of the equivalent of SGA here. And he's now doing his master's work, and he decided to do a hunger strike. Very, very few people want to do a hunger strike or are willing to make that commitment. That happens every 20 years, like it did at UC Davis in the mid-1990s and in the 1960s at UCLA. So when Jonathan showed his bravery by doing a hunger strike, it spoke to how serious the problems had become at University of Missouri. And then the second deciding factor was the fact that they had the whole football team decide to do a boycott. And as a Division I school, University of Missouri would have lost $1 million a game if they had not played and the boycott persisted beyond the next game, which was BYU. So they actually, the Board of Curators, which is the equivalent of the Pennsylvania Board of Governors for PASHE, made the decision to ask the president to step down. And that ended the hunger strike and ended the boycott and saved the university $1 million. Now, I do not know if that would have the same effect here because we don't have that sort of television contract with our football team. We have a really good football team, but we're Division II, we're not Division I. And we're not part of the football tournament system. So I don't think we would have had that sort of response from our Board of Curators equivalent. to ask Dr. Driscoll to step down, and pretty much the whole cabinet would step down at that point. So I don't know if that would have been an effective thing here at IUP. Another thing that's you may not know, and it's because I worked at Missouri for 15 years, there has been a tradition for the last 30 years of doing a protest on the campus by different factions for the last 30 years, every 3 to 4 years. So when the LGBT students were told they weren't going to get an LGBT resource center, they surrounded the board of curators and held them in their meeting. When the black students were informed the Black Culture House was going to be torn down and nothing was going to be built to replace it, they surrounded the board of curators and picketed the president's house. So we don't have that history here at IUP. So I don't think we would have had a replication of that situation here.
Okay. Wow. Okay. In President Driscoll's January message and mid-semester briefing, he talked a lot about diversity and inclusion and how he plans to move forward. Can you detail some of the actions his office has already taken to promote diversity?
Okay. With regard, the President's Ad Hoc Committee, he has now formed it. Dr. John Lowry, who's chair of Student Affairs and Higher Education, is going to chair the Ad Hoc Committee. And it's made up of a number of individuals who are pretty strong with regard sensitivity to student needs.
Okay.
So we have Valerie Mercado, who is the Title IX coordinator, Betsy Sarniso, who is the Greek Life coordinator, Michael Lemasters, who is director of housing and dining. Those three individuals are very sensitive to student needs and want to make sure that that committee pays attention to that policy review. There are a number of other activities. So for instance, you probably know about Nancy Nkumsa in the African American Culture Center. I believe she scored a big coup. And what I mean by that is you probably are familiar with Mark Lamont Hill from Morehouse College. He's an African American faculty member who is known for his social media presence and his effectiveness in front of the camera, both on CNN and Fox News, representing diverse perspectives. He's going to be here April 21st.
Oh, okay.
And it'll be open to the whole campus. They will do it in Toretti Auditorium. And it'll be that rare instance where we'll get to see a national celebrity who is well known in the Black Lives Matter movement actually on our campus. So that's really cool. Yeah. Another thing is, and this is the academic perspective, and since I'm an academic, we get excited by academic dorky things. And what's happening is we've invited Peggy McIntosh. Peggy McIntosh is a faculty member who developed as a feminist theorist in the 1980s something called Unpacking Your Backpack of White Privilege. And it is a standard thing now in sociology, psychology, and education for students in those fields to actually take her test on whether you have white privilege or not, and explore their levels of privilege or their lack of awareness if they have no awareness of privilege. So Dr. McIntosh will be here on April 26th, 5 days after Mark Lamont, to be our keynote speaker for the Diversity and Inclusion Symposium, which will be an all-campus activity where we will have sessions where students, faculty, and staff will help generate how the university will move forward in the years ahead. Okay. So those are some of the things that are happening. There are some things that are curricular that are taking place in the colleges. So for instance, humanities and social science, they are developing a diversity class that they might make mandatory for all humanities and social science students in the future. College of Ed and Ed Technology is actually doing a diversity action plan. And I think there was a third thing. Oh yeah, the third thing is College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. They're actually trying to develop a bias recognition program in search processes, which means one of the main concerns on every college campus is the fact that we don't have enough African American and Latina faculty in front of the classroom. The search bias program is to train faculty searches on how to effectively check their bias and prejudice in search processes. So those are 3 pilot programs that are being coordinated out of my office to diversify the campus in some manner.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hey guys, I'm your host, Lindsay.
And I'm Brandon, and we're your hosts for Entertainment News Break.
We cover weekly news on your favorite movies and television series.
And this semester, we're introducing 2 new segments. Don't miss Entertainment News Break every Wednesday at 8:30 on IUP TV, Channel 20.
And don't forget to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at EMB_IUPTV.
Today we have a bit of a different episode for you guys.
I can promise you, you won't want to touch that remote.
Don't do it, Rockers. Don't do it!
Max, you don't even belong on set yet.
La, la.
Get out of here.
Sorry,
I got a little ahead of
singing
myself.
every day, la la la.
Jake, not you two.
Best show ever.
Be quiet over there.
Guys, get it together. Anyway, Rockers, just keep watching.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Lauren Brown. I'm here with Dr. Pablo Mendoza. Let's get back to the conversation. Race is such a complex and difficult issue that a few hour-long conversations might not be enough to fully cover its multiple layers. Would it be possible to require students to take a course related to diversity so that they can get a full understanding of the complicated subject?
Well, without going into an in-depth discussion on shared governance and how hard curriculum is to develop, let me give you examples of other places that actually have a course that's required,
Okay.
if that helps. So for instance, University of Illinois for the last 2 years has had a mandatory orientation course. Okay. It's 1 hour credit, but it's for 8 weeks. And it's been a mixed bag in the sense that even when they had the course, that doesn't mean that people walk out of the course cross-culturally competent. University of Wisconsin has had a diversity requirement now for the last 15 years. And unfortunately, the way they've structured it is you can take any course that's not part of your culture. So, for instance, you're African American, you could take a course on Chicana women in Southern California, and that would fulfill the requirement, but that does not mean that you have any cross-cultural competency. Then there's a course out of University of California, San Diego, which is called Making of the Modern World. It's a year-long course. It's on the quarter system, so it's 5 credit hours per quarter. So 15 credit hours worth of diversity work. Okay. And they still had racial problems on that campus. So people look at a course as a panacea, and I still believe strongly that a course would be beneficial for students, as well, of course, for faculty and staff. But that does not mean that there will be no activities that are showing discriminatory bias still. There will still be individuals who will have taken the course and will still act in a discriminatory fashion, whether that be toward LGBT individuals, women, anti-Semitic, or racial. So I think there's still a benefit, but the judgment's still out on that.
Okay. Do you think that'd be something that IUP might end up working towards, or is it something that we just might not?
I believe that the humanities and social science faculty, who the 3 people involved with that are Aaron Conlin, Caleb Finnegan, Melanie Hildebrandt, are wanting to pilot this syllabus next year, and then if it's successful, try to make it a whole college activity in a few years. And then if it's successful at humanities and social science, see if we could spread it out to the whole university. But we're talking about a timeline of maybe 5 years before it gets to the whole university, depending on the success if it gets off the ground next fall. So there's a lot of contingency factors in the construction of curriculum that we have to be aware of.
Okay. In the mid-semester briefing, it was stated that President Driscoll will be hosting a symposium on April 26 discussing race, diversity, and inclusion that is open to the entire campus. What topics are going to be specifically addressed?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier about Dr. McIntosh. Let me go over the whole day, if that's okay.
That's perfect.
So we start at 8 o'clock. There will be a welcome by President Driscoll, an introduction by a student of Dr. McIntosh, and then for about an hour, hour and a half, Dr. McIntosh will talk about white privilege and community development, and then answer questions from the whole audience at the symposium. Then we will break it down into 2 distinct sessions. So in the morning will be discussions on how things are at IUP currently and what are the experiences of current students, faculty, staff. And we're actually bringing in Black alumni from both Pittsburgh and Philadelphia to lead some sessions to discuss what's going on. Then at lunchtime, there will be table talks where students, faculty, staff, community members, alums can sit around tables and discuss how they would like to see IUP develop and become more cross-culturally competent. And then in the afternoon, the last session will be something called diversity and respect, where we will talk about how we incorporate diversity and respect into our civil dialogue at IUP. And that will also be led by some Black alumni who actually do this in Pittsburgh currently. So it will be a very developmental day, and that will just be the first step because we intend to, in the fall, do a follow-up activity, whether it be called a symposium or speak out or conference, where we will build on the diversity and respect dialogue and also start doing caucus groups. And we've actually generated a number of speakers we would like to see over the next 4 or 5 years to come to IUP, which I can't divulge because we have no clue whether we'll be able to afford each one of them. But some of the names are highly exciting.
Okay. So would students have to register for that, or how exactly would you be able to be involved in it?
Okay. We are going to be asking everybody to register. It's free of charge, no cost whatsoever. The registration purpose is for our lunch tabling, so we can actually figure out how many bag lunches to produce so people can actually munch while they're talking. But that's primarily the driver there.
And is that on the IUP website? How would students be able to?
We have not constructed the IUP website yet. We're getting close because we just got the outline for the day Monday.
Okay, all right, that's wonderful. Many minority students that aren't African American feel as though there isn't enough promotion of diversity, whether it's the Latino or Latina community or the Arabic community. There is a want for more cultural appreciation on campus. Will the symposium touch on these issues if possible and offer other possible solutions?
It might touch. It depends on how the sessions break up. So what's happening in the morning is we will have multiple rooms, but the same subject will be discussed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if, say, a group of Latino students decide to go into one room, they can talk about how they would like to see IUP improve around Latino and Latina issues. The same with our international students from the Middle East. They could, if they wanted to, go into a session that has that topic of how to make IUP a better place, so on and so forth, and generate those ideas in those sessions.
Okay. What role will minority organization play towards creating the dialogue for the symposium?
Right now, the Frederick Douglass Institute, the Hispanic Heritage Council, the Native American Awareness Council, and this new group called the Racial Justice Coalition for Change, which is a faculty group. All of those groups are faculty-oriented groups, as well as the Women's Commission on Women's Issues at IUP. They're all faculty groups who are helping plan and structure the symposium day. Basically, my role was to help find the speaker and bring people together for the discussion, but we are asking the faculty to structure it, and they're all representative of those different populations. We hope that through the diverse faculty and through some of the organizations I just named, that we will get students from diverse backgrounds there. And hopefully some faculty will make it where you get a class credit or something like that to attend the symposium, whatever part you can attend. So we hope to have a lot of student representation, but we're still in the place where we're trying to get the advertising up and all that.
We'll be right back after one final commercial break.
What's up, Indiana? You're listening to WIUP FM 90.1.
Welcome back to Generation Gap. We're joined by Dr. Pablo Mendoza, and we're talking about race and diversity on the IUP campus. How interactive will the symposium be for students? I know you mentioned that there will be the discussions. How interactive will it be?
Well, the instruction we're giving to all the session leaders is you're not doing a workshop. You are basically introducing the topic we're going to analyze, and then you're going to step back and let everybody start talking amongst themselves. So the whole idea is to have high interaction and very, very little expert talking head. So I hope that is appealing to you, and I hope it's appealing to all the students and everyone who's watching this, because one of the things that will kill a symposium is the expert talking head. And the whole idea of symposium or symposia is to have people discuss things and then generate ideas at the end.
Okay. The president has stated that he has finalized the appointment of the HOC committee that is going to review and suggest any policy and student conduct code changes that might be necessary. How is the administration planning to effectively enforce policies that encourage respectful dialogue without hindering people's right to free speech?
You know, since we're only at the beginning stage with the ad hoc committee, they will make recommendations on how enforcement would take place. So we don't actually have an answer for that.
Okay, all right. One major area of concern for some students and faculty members is the treatment of the African American Cultural Center. The center is often neglected due to it being in such a small room. Many students don't know about the resource, and it has been criticized for its lack of diversity among the employee. How do you plan on addressing these concerns?
Well, African American Cultural Center is part of the Division of Student Affairs. I know that there's a long-term plan by the Vice President of the Division of Student Affairs to shore up diversity programming, and part of that is restructuring of how some buildings are configured and operated. I do not know the details of how the African American Culture Center will be reorganized, if it is going to be reorganized. But that would probably be a question to ask the Vice President for Student Affairs sometime in the next 6 months, because they're doing a study of how to shore up services for diverse student populations.
Okay, so this might be a similar question. But another area of concern is the fate of the Pan-African Studies. The program is in danger of being cut due to the lack of enrollment. However, many students have very little knowledge about the program and what it can offer. What can be done to promote the program to more students?
Well, I now need to give you context around the whole United States, if that's helpful. At the San Francisco State University, due to budget problems, San Francisco State was the first university in the United States to have a Black Studies program. And then after that, Women and Gender Studies and all the ethnic studies that have to do with domestic diverse groups. And they established a College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State back in the 1980s. And it was just voted by the Board of Regents, or whatever they're called for California State University system, to eliminate that college and make them department level activities again. So that's causing major stress in the San Francisco Bay Area. And, but it's reflective of how diversity is sometimes looked at certain colleges and all that. I do not know the history of the Pan-African studies here. I don't think any programs at this time are being looked at to be cut.
Okay.
But then again, I don't know the decision-making process of the provost. And I would suggest, knowing my interaction with the provost, that he doesn't cut programs willy-nilly. He would do a long-term analysis, which would probably be 4 to 5 years before anybody would be cut. So I don't know where this is coming from.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. The administration has taken big steps into promoting diversity this year. What steps are being taken to ensure the positive work that has been done will carry on into the following years?
Well, the fact that Dr. Driscoll and the cabinet are ensuring heavy participation of faculty in making recommendations and trying to format policy in the long run ensures that there will be institutional memory. Meaning that if President Driscoll or myself or Provost Moreland were to leave anytime soon, the faculty are the ones who drive curriculum in the end and drive campus culture. And it's something that many people sometimes overlook because we like to look at a president making a decision and then we think that everyone will follow that. But in essence, the heart of any university campus is the faculty and how the faculty perceive the campus would be moving toward. And the fact that the Racial Justice Coalition for Change is this grassroots activity of 60 to 100 faculty who want to incorporate diversity in the curriculum actually means that there will be a long-term involvement and inclusion of diversity in IUP's future.
Okay. Now, Dr. Mendoza, is there anything I may have left out that you would like to be asked?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for the opportunity
You're welcome.
for me to come here and tell you about what we're planning. And I hope that the students take the opportunity to see Mark Lamont Hill on April 21st and Peggy McIntosh on April 26th and help plan IUP's future.
Okay. That's all we have time for today. I want to thank Dr. Pablo Mendoza for joining us. Stay tuned for next episode to watch the finale of Generation Gap's 3-part series of the racial climate here at IUP. Thank you and good night.